G'day and welcome to KrakenCast, now with more Krakens. This is the oceanic branch of Vassals of Kingsgrave's Game of Thrones review series. Today we'll be discussing episode 3 of season 8 entitled The Long Night, written by David Benioff and D.B. Weiss and directed by Miguel Sapochnik. My name is Davidhhh on the forums, and today I'm joined by Duncan, who's back from vacation in the U.S., where I had the pleasure of meeting him and other vassals in New York City. Duncan?
Yes, I'm back. A little shaky, but raring to go. And my name on the forums is Valkyrist.
Sarah?
Hi, it's Sarah, aka Lady Weaver on the forums.
Bing?
Hi, this is Shushan on the forums.
Neil?
Blair and Neil on the forums.
And Abby?
Hi, JC Mormont on the forums.
And we may have a passable cameo by Dana, Tyne Dana on the forums a little later. We'll see. Just so we know, Duncan just arrived home from a trip around the U.S. where he met a whole bunch of vassals in New York City, L.A., and Ice and Fire Con. Was that most of your moots there?
Yeah, we had one in New York, a couple in L.A., because Bina was around there as well, so I met up with her. And, D.C. There was a bunch of people in D.C. that I met up with, including Casey. Oh. And then I got a lift to Ice and Fire Con where I met heaps more vassals and heaps more people in the community. But we'll be doing a recap of Ice and Fire Con this weekend, so we'll go into it in way more depth.
Yep, and we'll talk maybe a little bit about it in the after show, but I just wanted to make a little note there that he's back, Duncan, and he'll be hosting the rest of these, I believe, right, Duncan?
Yeah, absolutely. I should point out, I literally just arrived off the plane from America a few hours ago, so my energy levels are going to be pretty low. But this is a great episode to talk about, I think, for lots of different reasons.
I know. I'm waiting
to hear your guys' thoughts. But yeah, from episode 4 onwards, I'll take the reins back again. But thanks for holding things over, David and Sarah, while I've been gone. I appreciate it.
I know. I'm waiting to hear what you said because we got a little sneak preview in the little immediate aftercast that was happening when you guys crashed from Ice and Fire Con. So
right, yeah.
In any case, so this episode featured the long-awaited battle with the White Walkers. It got 12.02 million immediate viewers in the U.S. and broke HBO records with 17.8 million viewers by the next morning, beating the previous record holder, which was this season's premiere. That only includes some of the streaming viewers, though, and not on some of the other platforms like Amazon and Hulu. It was also the most tweeted television episode of all time. I know that my social media was all lit up about it for days before and after about it. It seemed like the ultimate nerd weekend, right? With one of the biggest event television episodes in recent times, and also the biggest movie opening weekend ever with Avengers Endgame, which raked in over $1.2 billion by the end of its first weekend. And it was also the first time my HBO Now had trouble connecting, so oh well. What did you guys think? Did this just feel like such a huge cultural moment this whole season? We've been talking about this a little bit, but
I think this episode, and with Endgame, was probably super annoying if you didn't watch it straight away or weren't able to. Like, it would have been an awful weekend.
Right.
Like, I know I watched this episode on Tuesday night, our time, so that's Tuesday morning, American time. So I've been like, and for all of the show chats or everything, I've turned off the notifications on Skype, and I'm just like, I'm not looking at the internet. I will not be spoiled. Like, be quiet about it. Don't tell me.
Yeah,
don't go on Facebook.
We arrived back from Ice and Fire Con like an hour after the episode had aired, and we checked Skype, and there was already 99 plus messages on there, so we had to restrain ourselves from checking, but it seemed like, a lot of people were talking about it. And even just in media in America, it seems like Game of Thrones is worked into every conversation, whether it's like sports or advertising or just anything. They use Game of Thrones as a cultural reference. It's just ever present. It's on the tip of everyone's tongue.
Yeah.
I just felt really bad because my friend's HBO cut out like halfway through the episode, and so like we were in a group chat talking about it, and then I spoiled something, and she got really mad, and because I didn't realize that her HBO had cut out, so like it was like even as the episode was airing, there were spoilers basically.
Yep. Interestingly, this is the first episode that I don't think actually did leak onto the internet beforehand, so we didn't have to worry about those spoilers. There were some rumors. When I was Ubering home from work, rushing to get home to make it, and I just made it, and then my HBO didn't kick in, and I was like, "Ugh." So I was a few minutes behind, but I managed to keep up with it. But as I was coming, I was looking, and like there were some rumors of some leaks in Spain or elsewhere. But luckily, this one didn't appear to actually leak, so that's nice, at least. For once, first one of the season. Thanks, HBO. So let's jump in with our lemon cake ratings. Who wants to go first? This is a tough one.
I can go first. So yeah, I agree. This is a tough episode to review because watching it, I felt really absorbed in what I was seeing, but also continuously frustrated.
Yeah.
I think the episode generated really great tension and some really emotionally impactful moments, but it was frequently incomprehensible, both visually and narratively. And I feel like the plot armor thing really rose to an almost absurd degree throughout this episode as we watched characters literally being buried in enemies in one moment, and then as soon as it cuts back, they're fine, or they've fought off like, waves and waves of enemies. Kind of breaks the suspension of disbelief. I think the final sequence was genuinely shocking, and me and the people I was watching it, the other vassals, were really sort of astonished by what we cried out in astonishment about what we were seeing, but possibly not necessarily for the reasons the showrunners intended. But we can get into that when the scene comes up. But overall, it's really hard to rate because like some scenes I'd give 1, some scenes I'd give 4. So I might just split the difference and give it a 2.5 lemon cakes.
So it's somewhere between 3 and a 4.
Cool.
I mean, I don't think this was as bad as, say, the Frozen Lake catastrophe of seasons of last season. I feel like while you were watching, a lot of the scenes were a lot more absorbing, like Duncan said. I've long since given up trying to make sense of the writing at this point. So I basically just went with what was going on for a lot of it, and it was really until the end in which I really started having this sort of the same question marks as I did about what was going on. Well, it was really until the end when I really started thinking again. The show forced me to start thinking again. I think most of it was fine. I think there were some really cool moments, and I think this is just what Game of Thrones is at this point. And this is at least the better version of Game of Thrones. It's the more entertaining version of Game of Thrones.
Yeah, I have a lot less hate towards this season so far than I did last season. And I'm not sure if that's because I'm resigned to it, but I'd give this episode 3.5 because I'm sorry, it always annoys me so much when there are like very silly tactical decisions made in movies, and this one had a lot that I was just like, you're so stupid, you're stupid, you're stupid. So I can't really give it a super high score when I'm that angry or annoyed watching it.
Yeah, I think I'm a 2.5, a 3, because I definitely had like an emotional reaction while I was watching it. Like I felt my body having like an anxiety attack during the first probably half of it, but I also was like half the time I was like, is this person dead? Is this person alive? Like who is fighting who? Also, I was watching with someone who had never seen the show before and was talking the entire time.
Oh no!
And that was the time. So like that might have impacted it. But anytime there wasn't dialogue, I was kind of really feeling it. And then like someone would talk, and I'd kind of be like, the dialogue is so bad. But overall, I mean, it was okay. I've only seen it once, and so I probably need to rewatch it. But it gets a passing grade, I guess. So a 2.5, 3.
5. I absolutely loved it. After the initial shock of Arya being the one delivering the blow, I've come to grips with it, and I actually kind of like it, and I think it is a nice surprise. And yeah, as far as the lighting, I watched it in the dark, and I had my phone off, and yeah, I kind of liked that it was confusing, like the kind of fog of war type of thing they were going for. But yeah, sometimes it was a little frustrating. That's obvious. But no, I loved it, and I've watched it again, and yeah, I'm backing it. 5 for me.
Cool. I'm so torn on this. Like, it depends on which moment you asked me, like immediately after watching it, after I thought about it for a while, after I heard from others, after I watched some of the like making of stuff, and then I just rewatched it immediately before this recording. And it's when my boss at work said he loved it a lot more the second time, and I have to agree. Like, the first time I was, like, freaking out and whatever, and part of it, I don't think it helped. I probably drank a little too much, so it made it harder to understand. Watching it the second time, I understood more of what was going on, and I appreciated it, and I really enjoyed it a lot more just now. So my rating in just, like, the last 2 hours has gone up probably a full point. So I'm gonna go 4.5, maybe even 4 3/4. It's not perfect, but it's probably the best battle we're ever going to see on television, and I loved it. Let's address the elephant in the room here, that dark lighting. So, a lot of people didn't like it. People on the internet were complaining, saying they didn't see it. They were all memes. There was one meme of a black square, and it said, "My favorite scene from this episode." Did it work for you? I mean, I understand that what they were going for. They were clearly going for, it's tough to see what's going on. It's tough to understand. It's a crazy battle, and it's dark, and it's night, and we have snow, and, all that stuff. But was it a good narrative and directorial choice, or did it just screw it up for you? What do you think?
I've heard an explanation of why it might have been super dark on Fandom Entertainment. So, like Screen Junkie News, Dan Merle put forward a possible explanation is when they were color correcting it, you don't actually compress the files. So when they were color correcting it on their screens, it could have looked absolutely perfect, but compressing the files to be able to be streamed and to be aired on network TV, it changes it, and it shrinks the black, so it means like your colors don't quite look the same. And for normal shows which are very brightly lit, it doesn't make that much difference. But with Game of Thrones, it tends to be rather dark before anything else happens.
Yeah.
And that could be why.
I think they were going for the sort of cinematic experience, and I feel like if this was actually shown in a cinema, it would have been a lot better. As it is, I feel like, at the very least, the atmosphere thing was there, right? So I don't think it was a complete failure. And I think this comes with the problem of people, like you said, this is one of the biggest television event. And you have actually a lot of people who probably never watched that much Game of Thrones, suddenly watching just for this episode because of all the hype surrounding it. And then this is their reaction, because this was not the first time in which this has happened, right?
This was, I think, the worst, though. I think.
Is it really the worst compared to the Battle of the Wall?
I definitely had more trouble the first time, at least.
Yeah, maybe.
But whatever.
Yeah.
And I've never heard everyone talk about it like this before. Like, everyone was talking about every review, every social media, every time someone posted something on social media, there were comments under it, yeah, but I couldn't see it, or things like that. Like, I've never seen it like this before.
Lots of people used to complain about all of the Danish scenes being super dark as well, ages ago.
It could also be just more people watching. I will say this, though, having just rewatched it, my first time I watched it on my regular TV, this time because I was taking notes and, trying to be diligent, I watched it on my computer monitor, which is much sharper, and I'll have to say it was much clearer. So it might depend on your TV and your settings and all that, because I definitely, this second time, had very little problem seeing everything, and maybe I was just closer and paying more attention and more sober, but or I don't know, but I definitely didn't have as much of a problem on my sharp PC monitor. So I don't know if that's part of it. How about the rest of you? Could you see it?
I think also it might be the costuming for this, for like the later seasons, especially this season, is like super dark. Like in the first couple seasons, I think they tried to stick more with like the house colors, which allow for you to be more identifiable, I guess. And so like now everyone is wearing black, and like when you have everyone wearing black, like you can't tell who is fighting who, and that also just makes it so much harder to like see what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
No, I think that's a good point. Everybody's in the Night's Watch at this point, right?
Right.
So, yeah, I liked the choice they made. I'm watching it on my computer monitor now, and it is a little brighter than on my TV. But I love the choice that they made. I know it's not for everybody, as we've heard through the reviews, but I loved it. It was confusing, but it was also scary. And I guess, I've never been in any sort of battle or trauma like this, and I bet it is confusing and hard to see and in just sort of a mess like this was, but I felt it was great.
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely a narrative choice. I mean, we're going with a battle unlike any that's ever been had, and even in the real world. I mean, because battles in general would be chaotic if you're not dealing with, artillery, in the old days, other than the dragons, of course. But, you've got this whole undead swarms just coming on you, and that's gonna be chaotic. So, I mean, it's clearly that's what they were going for. The question is, did it work for everyone, or was it just maybe a bad choice? I know my first time watching it, I was like, I have no idea what's even going on. But I wonder if people's reactions will change after they watch it and know what they're watching more.
I don't know. Do you really need to see everything?
Maybe not.
Do you really need to? Because is it that hard to just sort of fill in the blanks about what's, and I mean, there's not that many actually seeing the physical combat. Is that really that much better than just seeing sort of this spark in and out? I feel like it was much more effective just not being able to see everything.
It's fair enough. I mean, that's what they were going for, certainly.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, I mean, I think darkness can be used really effectively in battle in terms of creating a sense of like negation and paranoia and like the disorientation and the fog of war. I think that can be really well done. But if you don't really know what's happening, or if you can't follow the sort of sequence of events or understand like the sort of spatial geography to the point where you're left kind of confused and not in the way that the showrunners intended, I think that's a problem. I don't know. I have only watched it once. But I just remember asking what's happening more than actually being in the moment.
Yep.
I don't know. Like some scenes were fine, but other scenes. So like when they're flying through, the two dragons are flying through the fog. Like that's meant to be confusing. Like that's meant to like take on the disorientation of Daenerys, sort of being in this tumult of war and violence and whatever, and being sort of for the first time confronted with a threat that is actually worthy of a dragon, like because she's not used to that. The dragon's usually the sort of the trump card, but now it's actually almost on like an even battlefield when you're confronting like a force of nature. But when its characters kind of moving through this like haze of bodies, and you don't know which character's which, and I don't know. I felt it could have been lit better. Even like use darkness as you can, but light it in a way that's comprehensible, because you've poured so much into this. Like obviously so much has gone into this. Why not like show us it in a way that we can follow and really appreciate the detail and the complexity of the choreography?
Fair points. It'll be interesting to see if people's feelings on it change on rewatching, but I guess the time will tell on that. We'll start briefly with, since I mentioned it in the first episode, the credits. There was some talk of it changing, and all that really changed was they added the spikes in the trenches around Winterfell. Otherwise, it's pretty much the same as the last 2 weeks. Okay, so let's move into the actual episode. So we're going to talk mostly now about the first half hour or so, the preparations, the last preparations for war. Everyone gets into their places. Melisandre arrives alone. She lights the Aurochs and swords on fire. Dothraki charge the enemy, and most of them disappear, but a few people randomly run back. The dead attack in huge numbers. Dany mounts Drogon and attacks the dead, and Jon follows. Arya sends Sansa down into the crypts. Ed dies saving Sam, who runs. Sansa and Tyrion go into the crypts with the women and children, and Varys. The fighters fall back into Winterfell as Grey Worm and the Unsullied hold the lines. And let's leave it from there.
Can I ask, where did Melisandre come from?
Well, that's a good question. I was expecting her to come in with a whole lot more people, weren't you? Like, I was thinking she was going to bring, like, a whole bunch of other R'hllor followers or other priests, and she didn't.
I just don't understand how she got through the Army of the Dead. But I mean, I liked it. Her coming, I was not expecting to see her again, honestly. And when her horse showed up, I was jokingly like, "Is that Stannis?" And then it was Melisandre. And so I was like, I mean, okay.
I just found it so random. Like, if they're going to introduce her in the previous episode. Like, in the midst of battle, she's come waltzing up. And why does Jorah, like, let her approach the soldiers? Why does he assume she's a friend? Have they ever met? That was just really weird.
True,
but she's human and not undead. So, obviously, she's on their side.
Yeah.
Obviously.
I knew she was going to be coming to the rescue, but I figured it would be later in the episode and maybe even be that, the Deus Ex Machina we've had in every other major battle just about. But, I mean, I knew she was going to be in because she said she had to come back and die in Westeros. And let's face it, it wouldn't make sense for her to come back after the battle with the undead because that's kind of what she's been here for all this time, right?
I mean, I guess.
What did she do though?
Yeah.
Well, that's something I was going to actually ask later, but we can bring that up right now. I mean, what did she do? She lit up lots of stuff that ended up being ineffective. I mean, she lit the Arryks up, but then they all died. She lit the trenches, and then the dead climbed over them. So really, the only thing she did was come and give Arya a pep talk. Really, right? Which was effective.
I thought.
Sorry.
Well, I think that could maybe work. I just don't understand why she was introduced now and not prior to now. It just seemed really weird to do it during the battle.
Maybe if she'd come back early, they wouldn't have accepted her. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe.
Like, now we don't have any choice. They're here. Let's do it. She's on the battlefield. What are you going to do? Kill her?
I feel like she could have been used better narratively. Like, I really wanted her to, like, I just feel like she didn't get justice, I guess. And so, like, there were so many opportunities where she could have had like a nice, like, poetic downfall. Like, I wanted her to light herself on fire to, like, sacrifice herself, and like, I thought that would have been really, there's so many moments where that would have been like a good narrative choice, and they just didn't do it. So I just feel like they were smart to bring her back, but they didn't use her in a effectual way.
Yeah, I thought she was going to, like, resurrect people or something. It seemed to be she was, like, guiding Arya though, because she makes a few sly comments, and I didn't sort of catch it on the first watch through, but I sort of realized that afterwards, that she actually kind of guides her towards assassinating the Night's King.
I guess.
Yeah. Right. She has the whole comment. We can talk about it later when it comes up, but she has the whole comment about you did the eyes, the brown eyes and the green eyes and the blue eyes.
Yeah, which was the big, like, hey, you're gonna kill, like, undead people.
Right.
Great. But with the Mel walking in, it did fix the one thing that pissed me off the most, or one of the most, was how they had all of their soldiers outside their walls. So if they get turned, which they are more likely to, they don't have anything to break the undead on right up until the last bit. So, like, they're just going to be swept up by the whites when they come along.
Yeah.
And they had hardly any fires as well, and it wasn't like any of the soldiers had fires, which you need to kill the undead. You can set them on fire. When your own people fall and die, they will be turned. You don't have anything to stop them from turning, aka burning their bodies. Like, what the hell do you think is going to happen? And when Mel came up and lit that Arrax on fire, and I'm like, well, at least she's thinking smartly, because, like,
someone is.
For God's sake, like, whoever was doing, like, planning the whole battle is a fucking idiot. Sorry.
Yeah,
but
I don't really understand what their strategy is at all. Like, I feel like they couldn't have figured out a better way of, like, minimalizing the effectiveness of their forces. By putting the catapults in front of the army rather than in the fortress where they could be protected.
What was the Dothraki doing?
Yeah. I'm like, why did they have all of them outside the walls instead of inside their walls? So actually have the siege.
Or have
the only people that really couldn't would be your cavalry.
Or why wouldn't Dany go after the White Walkers with her fire before you send all of her people in? I don't know. I mean, I feel like if we try to analyze the actual war strategy here, we're just going to be banging. We're going to be very disappointed, and I mean, and I know it. No, I get it. I mean, I think none of it makes any sense. So if you try to look at it carefully, kind of like that 6th episode that Bring already mentioned, is that if you really look at it, it makes no sense. So I'm gonna just enjoy the episode, and but we don't have to, because that's what we do. We look at these things, but
this is what's confusing. They've put so much effort into the choreography and the armies and the armor and the structures. Why not hire, I don't know, a military historian or a military strategist to design an interesting battle?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Fair point. Totally fair.
Anything strategic, tactical, anything.
I think that Dothraki on the front, like, it kind of made sense. Like, I don't remember if this is mentioned in the show, but like, I'm pretty sure in the books, like, a lot of their like RX are like made of like Valyrian steel or something. So like, it kind of makes sense. And the fact that like in the books, you know how like with Stannis and everything, like they're not equipped for the winter, and so like I figured like they put them on the front line because like they're not equipped for the winter. So like if they did survive, like they wouldn't have a longer lifespan. I don't know, like just in terms of like effectiveness, like cost effectiveness, I guess, of the people on the front lines, or all the people that were like more from warmer climates and therefore like less equipped to like last and endure, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to design an effective strategy against like demons because you're not sure what they're capable of. But you think like settling in for a siege would be maybe more effective. I don't know, against like infantrymen that aren't really particularly smart, and you might be able to just like rain fire down on them, but actually sending your troops into the mass of, a mass of dead people that are 20 times your size seems like an effective way of, like thinning your ranks.
Right. I mean, I feel like most of the decisions they made tactically were not tactical. They were what would make for these moments we want to have in the episode. Like it or not, it was a great moment when the Dothraki go out and you see those lights going out, and then they go into the darkness, and one by one the lights start to disappear, and you start to hear screaming and growling and all that, and then they start to come back. Like, that was really great television, even if it made no sense at all.
Yeah, again, it's one of those, it kind of looked cool until you start thinking about it. It's like, why did they just kill all these people for no good reason?
Like that whole battle last season. I mean, it was great television.
It's better than that whole battle last season.
Okay. but in the same way is what I'm getting at. It's, it's weird, it makes no sense, but it looked really cool, and it made for a good moment, and I think a lot of the moments in this battle were that. I mean, one of the arguments I know in one of the after the episode things, or I forget which one of the two, I watched them both, there was, they talked about one of the things is that when the Dothraki are pretty much decimated, that is what sets Dany off to take off on Drogon, even though that's not what the plan was. So she gets angry and takes off, which then, Jon goes after her. So it's kind of like, with the Battle for Winterfell a couple of seasons ago, where we had a great plan and then Jon fucks it up by taking off because he's angry about Rickon. That's kind of what happened here. So once they all died, the whole plan went to shit. And that's what they wanted. Whether it was a good idea, whatever.
I want to see good drama. I'm not here for a history lesson on how militaries should operate. I want good moments, and I thought that was a great moment. I was happy to see Melisandre. It gave you a little light of hope that she was going to do something.
Literally,
when they're just storming through with the flaming RX. And then I thought it was effective when they all died, because you're like, oh, this is gonna be great, we got hope, and then like, oh shit, then the doom and the dread. Yeah, I guess it's how much you can stand as far as the non-reality moments of it. It kind of drives me nuts, like watching the Avengers, and I'm not going to talk about Endgame, but even in the first one where they're all fighting, I'm like, Thor should be able to kill all these guys. Why is Cap getting off punches on Thor? That makes no sense. But I guess it's as much as you can stomach, or you're, I mean, like, are you there for the moments, or are you there for the well, he shouldn't be punching that guy? And it's So I don't know. It worked for me.
It depends on what your expectation of the show is. If your expectation, it's a fun time. If it is just a fun time, I feel like the analogous movie almost is like Independence Day, even up until the very end, the ending. But I mean, it's fun.
I feel like the difference is maybe Game of Thrones presented itself as having some basis in like gritty medieval history and subverting expectations about the heroes always winning through luck and through righteousness, that there has to be some measure of like discipline and military intelligence and cunning and planning in place. You can't just win with like a righteous heart. You have to actually.
You can't.
Yeah, I don't know.
Well,
I mean, I guess you can now. Like the first few seasons, you could. Now it's just kind of spectacle and just fun, I guess. Yeah, which is fine. That's
I mean,
fine.
I'll give it more than that. I think it was well done, even if parts don't make sense.
Yeah, I mean, the spectacle is definitely well done, but it loses something when you feel like the characters are making stupid decisions or it's not rooted in any kind of reality. It's kind of like, I don't know. I mean, it is like the Avengers, I guess, basically. Yeah. Which I enjoy. I love the Avengers, but it's not the same.
Right. I mean, we're expecting George here, and it's not George, and hopefully George will do better. Who knows? But
I mean, the best analogy I heard was, I think it was A Cast for Kings, which is another Game of Thrones podcast, which is like we started off expecting steak and now we get popcorn, and popcorn's nice, but it's not as substantial as steak.
Right. Yeah.
Yep.
And to be honest, like with this show, I think they could have done that scene better and still had military tactics and make you love it and look cinematic. Like Lord of the Rings 2 Towers, they did it. It can be done.
That is a movie budget, though. Although I guess at this point, who knows? Maybe
they do have one, and they spent like 11 weeks on this episode trying to get that battle right. They should have put more thought into it.
I think at this point, we all kind of agree it wasn't the smartest thing. Some liked it more than others. I mean, I think for me, I'll give it better than just popcorn. I think this is better than Independence Day. I think it was really visceral. It was more than just entertaining. It was powerful. It was emotional. It swept you up in the moment. Again, if you want to go really detailed into the thoughts of it, whole bunches of it don't make sense, and I'll completely agree with that. And that's kind of the show we've got now. And I think after a few seasons, I think we kind of know that. So if you're still on board, I think they did what they do well. And they didn't do what they don't do well, poorly.
I think it sort of, I agree with all of that. Yeah, it definitely does certain things really well. It is emotional. It is impactful. I got super tense while watching the episode. I became nauseous at the sheer carnage and the sheer slaughter on display. Like it affected me viscerally. But I think when characters are doing stupid things or when you're confused, it sort of just takes you out of the narrative where, I don't know, it just breaks the immersion. So like even something like, so last episode ended when they all woke up. It was morning and the White Walkers are marching towards Winterfell. And now this episode starts at night and the White Walkers are gone. And that just confused me. Like it just took me out of it. It's like, what's happening? What, did I miss something? I think that's the thing. I kept asking, did I miss something? What am I missing? Because I couldn't follow the actual thoughts of the characters or the plan or the sequence of events.
And that's fair. I think that's completely fair.
My favorite part of the first 30 minutes and stuff was all of the Jamie and Brienne fighting, because I could figure out what was going on, and I didn't even realize how much I cared about those characters until I literally thought I was having an anxiety attack because I thought one of them died. But beyond that, I was are you alive? Who's fighting? And I couldn't figure out what was going on. But when it was the Jamie and Brienne and that group of people, I didn't mind it because I was I care about these people and they are fighting and I can tell what's happening to an extent that I am satisfied. But when it was more overview of everyone fighting, I was just I don't really, I'm taken out of the experience because I'm just so lost, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, let's break down a few of the little moments. One of the things I thought was interesting is at the start, The very first scene we see is Sam's trembling and or shivering hands. I thought that was a nice way to start. You know, him shaking and nervous and then getting weapons and oh shit, here we go. Like that was a neat way to start it, I thought. You agree?
I don't understand why they put Sam on the front line.
Yeah, true. Well, he did insist on it, so
I guess.
He's the Slayer.
Right.
Sam the Slayer. Can take out all the White Walkers.
He didn't have to be on the very front lines.
Right. Yeah. Well, he wasn't. The Dothraki were. He was just behind them.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do like those little details where it's not just the bird's eye view. It's focusing in on little things that people are experiencing, whether it's Sam's jitters or nervousness or just little things that people are noticing. Takes it down to that sort of POV perspective. And that whole opening sequence is really well done, like the single take where it's kind of just floating through the Winterfell yard as things kind of assemble and converge, and you can feel a sense of like panic and urgency, but also like determination and resolve, and like something's happening. One thing I did like about the episode was like the lack of dialogue. Like at certain points it almost felt like a silent film, or you were just watching like it was just like pure instinct and impulse and emotion. Like I thought that works quite well.
Yeah,
like it felt different.
Totally I totally agree. Like the first, like I want to say, I don't remember the time, like probably the first like 20 minutes or something was like the only dialogue was like, you know, like vague order, you know, like there wasn't any like serious dialogue. And then immediately once like they got to the crypts and like Tyrion started talking, I was like, ugh, like please go back to grunting and shouting, please.
Yeah.
Because like I really enjoyed all of the non-dialogue, I guess.
Yeah, like that felt quite odd and out of place where he starts monologuing. It's like, no, this is not what this episode's about. This is like, we all know what's happening. Like no words even need to be said. We know the threat. It's elemental. It's like us versus them. There's nothing more complicated than that.
But that's what Tyrion does. He talks during
I know, but it feels so out of place. Like he has no role in this story anymore. He's just kind of whinging and lamenting the past. But he has no like forward goals or sort of role in this fight.
Speaking of Sam, we get a nice moment or awful moment, depending on how you take it, where Sam's about to die and Dolorous Ed saves him and then dies. Like, by the way, I just want to say there was the podcast Bard set up a Facebook pool with questions, and one of the big questions was who would be the first big death of the season, and I nailed it with Ed. I actually thought it was going to happen way earlier in the season because he was like up north, but better late than never, but I still won that one.
Yeah.
I feel like that's the easier choice.
True.
I'm sorry. Not to deny your victory.
But I was the only one who actually called it, so
really?
Yes.
Oh, good job.
I didn't call that. I thought it'd be the last man standing.
Nope. And of course, Sam did not burn him, so he does rise later, unfortunately.
Yeah. That was my big religious stuff. I mean, Ed even told him all, make sure to burn the rest. And I'm just like, Sam, you couldn't even do one thing.
Well, he ran away at that point, so which I thought was a nice moment. He's like freaked out and ran away.
It is characteristic of Sam, but when we first met him, but I thought he had grown beyond that and over the course of the story had grown more as a character and wouldn't have run away but stood and fought. Which I'm kind of annoyed with how they used his character in this episode and that they didn't show any of the development he went through, and he didn't get the sort of triumphant moment where he like saved someone or like did something. It was just more like, oh, Sam, like using him to laugh at.
Right. I mean, Sam's the everyman character, but you know, we want better. We want him to be the hero.
But I'm just like, if Danny can kill White Walkers better than Sam does, but Sam has actually been training since he was a child, even if he hated it, there's something wrong.
There is a lot of, seems to be almost character regression going on. And it's not just about Sam. I think the worst was John. I have no idea what he was doing this entire episode.
He was yelling
nothing, following Danny.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. He did nothing.
Right. He was supposed to be protecting Bran, which came to nothing.
Well, he killed like 1,000 whites in one go.
Apparently.
That was pretty cool.
I feel like Eddie's Dan. I mean, yeah. I almost feel like Danny was the one who's actually direct. Well, I don't know. Maybe. Also, first of all, how did he learn how to like maneuver dragons so fast?
I don't know. Yeah, that was weird.
He's a Targ. He's a Targ.
Yeah.
The dragon did all
Targaryens
the
don't
work.
become automatic masters of masters of dragon warfare.
But John does.
Apparently.
Yeah, I know. Any other big moments in here we want to talk about? One I liked was Arya saving the Hound with her arrow. As the Hound's coming up, she looks and he looks up at her. It's like, oh, nice little moment. Okay, so let's move into to the next section. So for our next section, Melisandre lights up the trenches. Sansa and Tyrion talk marriage in the crypts. Theon gets forgiveness from Bran, part 1. Bran wargs into ravens for some reason. The dead crawl into the fire to allow the rest through and swarm Winterfell. The Night King flies off on Viserion.
They should have had way more trenches.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The fields around Winterfell should have just been filled with trenches to catch all the whites and hold them in place, so you could shoot burning arrows at them.
Doesn't Winterfell have an oak?
They should have had their the thing is they had their wood which had dragon glass embedded. They should have had those outside the walls because those kill the whites as soon as they walk into them. So why not use them?
The catapults should have been raining, burning obsidian that whole battle instead of being completely useless outside the castle.
Well, yeah, they stopped immediately. They sent one round off, and that was it.
And they should have had boiling oil and put that down and then set the oil on fire as well, which would have been very effective, but they had nothing to use.
And Davos shouldn't have to say man the gates. They should already be manning the gates.
Right.
Yes.
If I could make a suggestion, let's focus more on what they did do instead of what they didn't do, because otherwise we're just going to be frustrated for the whole conversation.
Fair.
I mean, there's lots of stuff they should have done. There's lots of stuff they should have done, but we could have probably a whole podcast about that. How we could, maybe we should do at some point a podcast of how this battle could have been done better. But
we did see one of the obstacles they had to face was the actual lowering of the temperature stopped them from actually igniting a lot of the traps they'd set in place. So they weren't able to shoot arrows at the trenches, so they needed a bit of magic for that.
That's why.
I think that was great.
That was pretty interesting.
Yeah. And I liked how it was. Are we talking about how Mel lit the trenches yet or not?
Yep, that's all. That's the beginning of this section.
I liked how Grey Worm actually put it together and was just like Mel's there, fire, no one else can light it. And I was wondering if he was going to leave his men out there to die, which they kind of were sacrificed. But he actually got them out and had them go get Mel and bring Mel out to light it, which I was really happy with. And I'm just like, it made me really like the Unsullied in this episode and how they used them. I'm just like, they were the best used military force in this whole thing.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to interrupt for a second because we have a visitor. Donna, say hi.
I'm here. Yeah, but Mel could have done it at more than a Mirandering slow pace. It's...
Look, we have Donna here. Say hi, Donna.
Hello.
Fire has to be seduced into existence. You can't just rush it.
Sultry walked up to it.
Yeah. It's like snake charming.
I guess her fire tactic thing was an indication of how her powers were dying, I guess, and so she was dying. So I don't know.
Except her powers seem way more powerful than they were with Stannis. She's blowing
She's
setting fire out of her
fingers. Dragons are around, but they're also weaker in certain ways because the White Walkers are right there. And as Danny said in the previous episode, her dragons struggle in the cold. And I think with that ungodly winter that they're bringing, War is just not as strong.
Right.
Yeah.
She had to go back to Essos for some retraining.
Well, I mean, she did actually. She did.
Yeah.
Yeah, she leveled up.
Yeah.
I really wonder if she made a deal with R'hllor, like, I'll sacrifice myself after the battle if you give us enough power or give me enough power to do this one thing, because she really couldn't do it for a long time. Like, she was struggling.
If that deal was made, I think it would have been decades ago, like when she knew what her job was. She would have been like, okay, I am ancient already. You just give me another like 50 years of life and I'll finish what you want me to finish.
Sounds like she did. I think she may have. We just haven't seen it. Hey, Donna, interrupt for a second. Can you give us your lemon cake ratings?
3.5 lemon cakes.
Okay.
If it was on the action and the effort that went into this episode, 5 out of 5. But I took 1.5 off for some story things that I disliked.
Fair enough.
Which wasn't Arya killing the Night King, by the way. That was fine. That's not any of that 1.5.
If there's anything you want to say in general, why don't you say it now?
Yeah, I wish it wasn't so dark, so we didn't spend 5 minutes messing around with my TV settings to figure it out if it was my TV or the episode.
Yeah.
I thought Mel should have died setting the trench alight, but I guess Arya needed that pep talk. I had so many like pump fist in air moments when, like, my first one was like when Mel says to Grey Worm, like, Vala Ragulis, and he says like Vala Doharas.
Yep.
Like, back, and I'm like, yes. Like the Not Today, and some really great callbacks when Jamie and Brienne and Pod are like getting, like, there's quite a long shot for what's happening of when they're getting everyone in it's kind of spinning around, and I did like that part. I have issues with what the fuck was Ghost doing on the front lines, but you know, John doesn't care anymore because he has a dragon. I loved Bran's conversation with Theon. I thought, even though like Sansa and all that have accepted him, it was nice for Bran to say, like, not only you're a good man, but you're home. Bless Alfie Allen. I think it was like in the second season when he realized where his story was going, he got extra acting lessons, and my God, they paid off. Especially this episode where he just broke my heart. And but yeah, that's about it.
Okay, cool. You can just join us for this part of the conversation if you want. So one of the things here I liked was Sandor running from the fire again. You know, that was what we expect, right?
I feel like, shouldn't he got over it? Well, okay, I guess he did. He'd never get over it.
Right.
Yeah, actually, with this whole thing, in my notes I wrote that this is Sandor's absolute worst nightmare.
Right.
Fighting an army of the dead that he doesn't think they'll really win against. And to defeat them, he kind of needs to use fire, and everyone around him is using fire, and he's just like, I can't deal. And I was just like, oh, poor Sandor, mate.
Varys has a little dark humor where he's, at least we're already in a crypt. And then we have Tyrion and Sansa debating how they could help. Witty remarks won't make a difference. And Sansa basically says what we're all thinking about Tyrion at this point, right?
Yeah.
I liked Sansa's comment that the reason why they're all down there is because they actually can't do anything. And that she recognized that and said it and was just like, no, we're here because we can't do anything and we'd just be a liability for them.
I did really like Sansa and Tyrion the entire episode. This is going to be a little bit later because I do have to go in like 2 seconds.
Sure.
But I loved every time you saw Varys after dead in the crypts, like he's hiding with children, and when they come out from hiding, he's holding like a little girl's hand, and it's just this callback to like Ned and Varys talking in the Black Cells, and Varys saying like, who's going to look after the innocent children? And even though I will never be able to reconcile Varys and his treatment of innocent children and his treatment with the little birds, it was a nice character beat that like every time you see him and he's in danger, not only is he in with the kids, he's at the front, like, so if anything got to them, he would be the first.
What does he do, Varys?
I know, right? Well, what does he have left to do?
What is he doing for Dany?
I mean, I'm assuming he's going to do something in King's Landing, or else why is he still around? I mean, I think he's treading water right now.
Yeah, I think he doesn't have anything he can do in Winterfell, but I think once they get to King's Landing, all of his past as being the Master of Whispers will really come in handy. So I think it's more of a, for now he can't do anything, but later on he can. So yeah.
Back to Sansa and Tyrion, one of the things I like their little discussion when Tyrion sort of says, maybe we should still be married. And Sansa has the moment, well, you were the best of them. Not that that's really saying much, but...
and his face was like, oh God, that is terrible.
Right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Then, of course, there's a scene that we probably will want to at least talk about, at least the beginning of, is Theon apologizing to Bran, and he interrupts him and says, everything you did brought you where you are now, where you belong, home. Tears.
I wanted to like that scene great. So much more than I did, because Theon is my favorite character, and like I'm I wanted to be so emotional, but I've mentioned this in the group chat or whatever for this the show, but like Isaac Hempstead Wright is so bad at his line delivery that I just, anytime he talks, and I get it, his character is really hard to play, but like anytime he talks, I just think of this like one stupid meme where it's like he and Sansa are hugging in like season 7, and he's like, I love you too, human sister, beep boop beep boop. He's just a robot, like, and like it like lost all emotion because his character is so emotionless, and like I couldn't. It just makes me cringe.
He sucks energy out of any scene that he's
right. I mean, I asked
like this, completely deflates it.
I asked this in the first episode if it's bad acting or good acting when he's so like, I think that's what they wanted him to do. So I don't know.
I know.
I think it's better this season than it was. I liked it. I thought it was better this season than it was last season. Last season, it was just an abrupt change from normal Bran to what he is now. And I thought this season it's a little better, but it could be. I could see where it's off-putting.
I just wish he could still be a kid. Like he could still be tackling with these like deep, scary issues, and he could be tackling the fact that he has all of this knowledge that's overwhelming him. But there would be like a nice tragedy in the fact that he's also a kid having to deal with this, and he could still try and relate to his siblings, but have that distance, like have some kind of internal conflict. But he's like, there's nothing there. He's just a robot. He's just a receptacle of knowledge.
I really wished he had more character, because at the moment, like you're saying, it's more like they've stripped him of everything that really made him Bran, and now it's just Bran's body, but not Bran inside, really. It's a very different character that he's playing now than he was initially.
It could also just be trauma. I mean, he's seen now everything. He's seen all the horrors this world has done, and he's seen some of them firsthand, and he has to deal with what he did to Hodor. So this could be just him retreating into, okay, I can't deal with this world anymore. I'm just going to do what I have to do and not think about it. So that would kind of make sense. But of course, we've never gotten any of that. So I don't know.
That's true, yeah. That's definitely true. But it'd be nice to get some kind of insight into what he's dealing with.
Right. Unfortunately, we don't have first-person narrative here, unlike the books. So maybe in the books, whatever happens, we will. One other thing, I thought it was interesting. We finally see the Night King, but we don't see him until Bran takes off into the Ravens, which kind of does nothing for the plot other than we get to see the Night King for the first time. I noted it as I was doing it. It was 34 minutes into the episode, which I thought was a really weird narrative choice. We don't see the bad guy for over a third of the way into the episode, almost halfway.
It actually reminds me of during the episode, it reminded me of like a weird theory sort of thingy that I heard. I can't remember where, but like that Bran is sort of in a way controlling the Night King now, because it was the children of the forest that created the Night King, and then like as the three-eyed crow / raven, they sort of hold that mantle of controlling them. And then we only saw the Night King after Bran had walked, and it was just like, what? And then we, like, the whole time we've been seeing the Night King, at least in this season, it has been while Bran's walking. So I'm just like, I don't know.
I think that's more to do with the fact that, well, first of all, I think it makes sense that the Night King shows up about a third of the way through, just because like the story structure of the episode, it's kind of like, like the beginning of Act 2, which would be the main conflict. And then the reason that you don't see the Night King before any of this, like unless it's in relation to Bran, is because he's the only one that has the ability to go that distance to see him. But I just am thinking of this interview that I don't know the name of Bran's actor. Is Isaac Hempstead, right? Or something like that? I feel like I'm saying it wrong. But there was like an interview with him where he's like, if I see another theory that I am the Night King, that I am related to the Night King, he's like, I'm going to scream. So like, I think that has been debunked, but and it's more just the fact that Bran is the only one that has the ability to narratively connect the plot to make sense for why we are in the presence of the Night King.
Right. Do you guys remember that episode of The Simpsons with the monorail?
Vaguely, yeah.
Because there's a scene where like Leonard Nimoy is on the monorail and it gets saved at the last minute,
right.
And he says, "Well, it looks like the day was saved thanks to me." And Barney's like, "You didn't do anything," and he's like, "Didn't I?" That's what I think like Bran's role in the story is.
Right.
Like he keeps saying that he's like pulling strings, but he doesn't actually do anything.
Right. One other thing that was interesting during this section here, and actually from this point on, really, was all the music and the music changing beats as it goes through. Like there was one section that was like almost EDM dance music, but like powerful, and it created lots of suspense. I don't normally notice the music in these things, but as I was watching it the second time, I was like, wow, that was a neat bit there, and oh, look, it just changed, And then of course we get the piano at the end that we'll talk about later. But
they had some really great cello music in this, like the part with the piano. I think it was more the cello at that point really had the melody, and it was beautiful, and it was just like great.
So for our next section, Sandor, Beric, and Arya fight in the crypts. Lyanna Mormont dies killing a giant. Dany and Jon fight the Night King on their dragons. Arya avoids and or kills White Walkers in the crypts. Beric dies saving Arya as the Hound carries her off. Melisandre gives Arya a pep talk. And that's that for that section. So, mostly the crypts for this. Sandor, we can't beat death. Beric, tell her that. That was a neat moment. I liked it.
I thought Beric should have been like, look at me.
No, I like look at her. I liked it. Especially for Sandor, it would work, because Sandor doesn't give a fuck about Beric, but like, she gave him inspiration to keep fighting. I liked it.
I loved the library scene where she's like sneaking around. It felt a bit disjointed with like the battle has such like furious and tumult, and this was a much more quiet sort of tense scene. But I thought it was effective, and it like added to the sort of horror atmosphere of the monsters, and the fact that even Arya, this killing machine, was afraid of them.
It was great, and actually that whole scene really reminded me of a Korean movie called Train to Busan. It's on Netflix. It's great. And how you have to try to stay as silent as possible when they're around, because if they hear you, they'll all swarm you. And that she distracted them by throwing a book was just like, Train to Busan. Nice.
It was totally a stealth mission in a video game. She's like distracting them and sneaking around bookcases.
Well, I mean, this whole section was really horror movie. I mean, they even said in a lot of things that the first section is like kind of the build up and the tension, and this was the horror movie section, and then of course the finale is the action movie section, and this all feels like a real great horror movie, right? Her hiding, like you said, it could be video game horror, like one of those. Yeah. There's one interesting bit that I liked in the one of the after things when she goes under the table. There's an actor who plays the White Walker who apparently in real life is like double or triple jointed, and it made him seem really otherworldly. And I don't know if you take a moment, he only appears for like 10, 20 seconds in the episode, but it was just so like weird the way he moved. It was really cool. I like that moment.
I kind of wish there was more of this stuff, because it makes it seem like individual whites are actually really powerful and strong and dangerous. Whereas when you see hordes of them just being mowed down by one sword, it like sort of lessens their scare factor. So this made them individuals really intimidating.
I think that it was a good enough amount, because I really hate jump scares. I think first of all, I'm like a really anxious person, so like they freak me out. And then also I think they're kind of a cheap thing in horror, but I think that this was like the perfect amount of like, it was like, you just had like, you had one jump scare but you were very tense the whole time. And I think it was like a very earned jump scare. And I think that if there was any more, it would have been more too cheap, and it like lessened the effect. But I do agree that it does kind of make it like, I don't know if it makes it a little tonally inconsistent, but like you see someone can kill 100 White Walkers, by like spinning a sword around, and then like Arya has to like Scooby-Doo her way around, So the Scooby-Doo thing was not mine. Someone in that group chat was like talking about it. I don't remember who it was, but if you're listening, it was very funny. Yeah, I think it might have been Casey.
Sure.
It was very funny, and I really appreciated that.
It was great.
Anybody play the video game The Last of Us?
Yeah.
It feels a little
Love
bit
that
like
game.
a little bit like Last of Us in that scene.
Yeah, you throw the bottle to lure the zombies.
Mm-hmm.
And Zelda, when you're sneaking through the castle for the first time, behind hedges and things. Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about Lyanna's death. I mean, we're talking total fan service here, right? I mean, no question, this character was supposed to appear in one scene, and they loved the actress, and yet one of the great moments of the episode, I think. Do you agree?
I definitely agree with that. I thought that before this, she was very fan servicey. Every time she spoke, I was like, oh my God, they're just, like playing into the fans. Like, oh my God, like I get it, girl power, blah, 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 but I think it allowed all the fan service built up to a nice death where she went out like a badass, and it was earned. And I think it was really cool.
Yeah. Like I have never really overly loved her character in the show, apart from the first part where she sent the note saying no king but the king in the north. So for this, like the whole time I'm just like, God damn it. And then she wasn't even like holding her weapon when the giants walked in, and like they had whites all around her, and I'm just like, she's a fucking idiot. And then the giant white picked her up and she dropped her weapon. I'm just like, what are you doing? That's the first thing you learn. You never drop your weapon. And then she stabbed him in the eye with her other weapon, and I'm just like, never mind, I take it back. So great, she did so well.
She's also how old is she supposed to be in the show? I know the actress is around like 14, 15 now.
I thought she was like 12.
Right, somewhere.
Yeah,
but I'm really bad at judging
like
ages.
9,
and she takes out a giant.
Young.
This is one of the moments I was getting really nauseous because I really actually thought the giant was going to bite her head off.
Oh no! Well, did you hear the bones breaking? That was horrifying. That was really.
I ate dinner watching this, and I was not nauseous at all. I was just like, it's fine, whatever.
Yeah, I was kind of like, at first I was like, why is she here? Like, she's so like in the way. Like, she's like 2 feet tall. People are gonna like trip over her. Like, I get it, she wants to fight, but she's like a young child.
No. I was just like, you want to fight, but why aren't you actually fighting? You're just standing around doing nothing. What are you doing? I was so annoyed.
Yeah, she is fan service personified.
Yep.
And I mostly like it, but yeah, she played this part really well. But yeah, enough of her.
It's the end of her.
Oh, here she comes. She's gonna say something badass. I'm like, oh, okay. I like it, but this was a good ending.
Right. I mean,
enough.
I feel like, in many ways, this is one of the moments where we talk about like the differences between the books and the shows. And some people criticize the show for showcasing actresses or actors that they like and giving them bigger parts than maybe they deserve, or better lines or more storyline. And I mean, this is the perfect example. This is a character they brought in for one scene to literally tell Jon to fuck off, back a few years ago. And they loved the actress. And you know what? It worked. I think for me, it worked. It ended up an ongoing character we liked. Someone who may or may not ever even appear in the books, or certainly won't at this level, unless George decides something from having seen it, which is always possible. But, I don't think she's going to go out like this either in the books. And yet it worked, and it was a great scene. And I think it shows like one of the differences between making a TV show and writing the book. It was totally earned, and I loved it, and everyone cheered, I think. Let's go to, as part of this scene still, the Beric dies saving Arya and goes out fighting like a boss. And then Melisandre says to him after he dies, the Lord of Light brought him back for a purpose, and that purpose has been served, which appears to be to save Arya. That was his purpose all along? Okay. What do you think of that?
I forgot he died.
Weird.
You forgot?
I thought it was weird that the purpose he's been brought back is just to save Arya, but it seemed really, really weird narratively, and I still think it's really weird. Like, I like the fact that Arya killed the Night King, but that line I was just like, yeah, I don't think it was terribly great. And I also think that Sandor's a bit of a dick, because like after Beric's sword gets thrown out, okay, cool. Beric doesn't, I don't think he has a weapon, but Beric's the guy in the back. And Sandor's just like running through with Arya, not fighting anything. And I'm just like, man, what are you doing? Like, help your mate out.
Right. He actually picks her up. He picks her up and carries her off.
I know,
as he's getting knives through him. But he could have also picked up Beric when Beric's been stabbed quite a few times and like pick Beric up and also run with him.
I liked that scene because I thought it was like a throwback to the Red Wedding aftermath when like Arya wants to go in and he's like, no, we're getting the fuck out of here. And so I liked that. But I totally forgot that Beric died immediately after that scene. Like his character felt so unimportant to me that I just was like, why are you even here anymore?
Yeah. A lot of characters died in this episode, but they were all pretty like D grade sort of characters.
Right.
Didn't even really need to be around.
Shut your mouth. Theon is amazing. You shut your mouth.
Theon. No.
Right.
Theon is great. He's the exception. I wasn't talking about
Theon and I think Jorah are like your like secondary characters that died.
Right.
And then everyone else died as well. I mean, and it's just
they're important characters, or they were important characters, but I feel like they haven't really had anything to do for the past few seasons.
Right.
Yeah.
Well,
they were expendable.
Yeah.
Well, of course, the interesting thing is that Beric, we know is dead in the books, right, at this point.
Long time.
So here, it's interesting that they gave him... We've been wondering what's the point of keeping him around, other than maybe they like the actor, but here at least they tried to give him a reason, like he had to stay to save Arya. I don't know if it works, but at least they tried. I'll give him that.
I mean,
but anyone could have done that.
Yeah.
He sacrificed himself for Arya, like he sacrificed himself for Lady Stoneheart, I guess. Like,
right.
Well,
so, yeah,
I read something. I read a suggestion on Twitter, which is that Arya should have been killed in the battle, and he like gives her the kiss of life. And then when she comes back to kill the Night's King, she would have been reborn when she kills him.
Right. I would have liked that. Would have been awesome. And or Melisandre. So Melisandre does it, by giving him her life for all that. Giving her his life.
It would have been a callback to Lady Stoneheart. It would have sort of fulfilled the prophecy, and it could have been like it would have been devastating to see Arya die, and then it would have been a real surprise when she comes back and kills the Night.
Yeah.
On the other hand,
with Mel in that room, I thought Mel was going to give Beric the kiss of life to bring him back as well. And I was just like, and she did nothing, and I'm just like, you're a heartless bitch. Okay.
I thought Mel and Arya were going to talk about how they both banged Gendry. every time they made eye contact in this episode, I was like, oh my gosh, they know. They both know.
Keep your hands off him, he's mine.
Keep your leeches off him, he's mine. And of course, we also get the great moment where we get Melisandre's little pep talk, which apparently makes all the difference, which seems to be the only reason she's really here. Brown eyes, green eyes, and blue eyes. Those would be the ones I said you'd be killing. And then she also says, what everyone's favorite line, because we get a Serial Pharrell callback. What do we say to the god of death? Not today.
Yeah. It's interesting how they posture Arya as like the almost prophesized killer of the Night's King, as though she's the one who is capable of killing death. She knows the face of death. She's the one who's meant to close the blue eyes. It's like they've pivoted from the prince that was promised to this other aspect of the myth and connected it to the Night's King, which is something we've never really considered. I don't know how to feel about it.
Well, the prince didn't have a gender base, in Valyrian, so...
Yeah, at least show-wise.
That's true.
At least in the show. Okay, so Dany Dracarys is the Night King. I've made it a verb. And he walks through the fire. Then he raises the dead. The dead rise in the crypts. Dany saves Jon with Drogon's fire. Drogon gets overwhelmed by the dead and Dany falls off, but Jorah saves her. Sansa and Tyrion have a moment amidst the chaos. Bran tells Theon he's a good man before he gets killed by the Night King protecting Bran. Viserion falls, bleeding fire out of the side of his mouth and attacks Jon, stopping him from getting to the Night King. Jorah takes multiple swords, protecting Dany. The Night King approaches Bran, but Arya jumps seemingly out of nowhere and stabs him with the dragonglass blade that was supposed to kill Bran, which we should talk about. He shatters and dies, and the Whites shatter, and the White Walkers and Viserion fall. Jorah dies in Dany's arms, and then Melisandre takes off her ruby brooch, walks out, and ages to dust and die. So lots here to talk about, right? Let's start real quick with a nice big dragon battle, and the Night King falling off his dragon and losing. He's like got his spear there, ready to like throw it, and then he falls and loses it, which is kind of interesting. Although he gets it later, that was kind of neat, right?
What's the point of that?
I don't know. It's just fun. I mean, that gets him on the ground to going after Bran, I guess, because he's not on the dragon anymore.
Wouldn't it be more effective to ride a dragon?
I know,
it'd be faster.
Well,
the whole thing is like
Danny, stop.
Mr. Night King, Mr. Night King. If you just get to Bran immediately, you have a dragon. You have a cooler dragon that breathes blue flames, rather than the shittier dragons that they kind of just sort of collapse with a bunch of things stabbing you. You could have just ended this. You could have won. And I don't know what Night King. What are you about?
Well, we'll never know.
That's the thing. I still don't know what his motives are. What is the point of his attempt to kill Bran? Why is he trying to kill Dany? What is his motivation? Who is he? Where does he come from? And none of it matters now because he's dead.
Right.
It feels like that's been a huge part of the mythology of this series. Right. That's like been looming and been sort of posed these sort of eternal questions about the nature of winter. And it all just kind of ends in nothing.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I guess I feel like what they were going for is that he was created by the children of the forest, and with him the rest of the White Walkers and the others and whatever, to take out humans as they were being, he was their nuke, to protect themselves and keep them alive. And then the nuke got out of control, and now he doesn't really have any plan other than, I'm supposed to kill the humans, so I'm going to do it. I mean, I don't know where the whole connection to Bran thing comes, if only it's just you see me, so I guess I need to come for you. I don't know. We never get any of that.
That's
but
interesting.
Other than that, that's pretty much his only motivation. We're going to come for the humans. That's what I'm supposed to do. The Bran thing, I don't get.
I guess I just assumed they had I thought they had like a civilization maybe, but it could just be that they're literally just Terminators who are just fulfilling a programming order.
Of course, there is the awkward question of where does his clothes come from? He has that fabulous outfit, and he didn't have it when he was created, because remember, he was shirtless when they put the dragon glass in him. Oh. So they have to have some culture because he got that fabulous outfit. We have to make this fashion cast.
Also,
right, Sarah?
Also, they know that Valerian blades kill them. Why not put some armor on?
Do they?
Yeah, they saw Jon kill one of the White Walkers with a Valerian steel blade at Hard.
Do they have that much awareness, though? And do they know what it was or why or any of that stuff? I don't know. We don't know.
They have enough awareness to pull a dragon out of a ocean or whatever. I think that they would probably know those things.
Maybe. I don't know. Maybe.
I know. I was going to say, do they have access to armor? And I'm like, probably. They have an awful lot of White's outfits to choose from, so could have.
That's presumably where it came from, I guess, because all of the quote unquote others, the more intelligent ones, or at least seemingly so, the leaders, seem to all have a nice outfit, where all the others are just sort of whatever they were wearing when they died.
Or are they like Elsa from Frozen and can magic their outfits together?
There you go. Fashion cast.
No, fashion cast. One of the others. I love every single thing Mel was wearing this episode. I'm like, I want your outfit. I want your cloak. Like, I want it all. Please give me.
I feel like if they are going to make him like smirk after Dany tries to fry him and fail.
That was neat. I liked it. It was dumb, but I liked it.
I feel like if they are going to do that, then they needed to give him more character.
True.
They needed to actually make him do then he needs a motivation. If it's just some sort of force of nature, then what's the point of why is he smirking at Dany?
Right.
They tried to go halfway with him, which I feel like is exactly the wrong place for him, which is I feel like why a lot of people are disappointed after he just gets murked, gets by Arya.
He gets killed by prison shanking.
Yeah.
Someone just stabs him in the gut and he's dead, and all the White Walkers are dead.
Yeah.
It seems like pretty easy.
I think the issue with the Night King is when you're dealing with zombies, the reason most successful zombie franchises never have sentient zombies is because once you have a sentient a purpose for zombies, it doesn't really make sense beyond an animalistic purpose. Once you really take it down and think about it, like they don't make sense. And so I think I like that in George's book there is no like Night King who has like this overarching goal beyond like conquer. And like once you start trying to give them a real goal, you can't come up with one because they're not human. They're like these weird half alive things. So I think that's why the Night King was so confusing. Is like they wanted to give him a motivation, but then they like realized like he's too powerful to like give him like a real motivation. I don't know.
I don't know they ever really tried to be honest. I mean, I think ultimately the only reason he was there is to be a personification of the bad guys, whereas we don't need that in the books, or who knows, maybe we will get it in the books, but probably not. And on the show, it's always good to have like someone you can look at in the eye, and in this case, someone to be coming after Bran. Because otherwise the whole story doesn't work without, at least this part, whatever we did here probably won't happen in the books that way because there's no Night King, unless they take out all the others or something.
Yeah, it seems like a design flaw that if you lose this one guy, your entire civilization collapses.
Except that they didn't design it; they were created. So they were designed to be bad, to be something else, to be a weapon. If anything, it's a good thing. If you're creating a weapon, wouldn't you want a way to take them out?
Yeah, but then keep the king in his castle in the lands of always winter and send his generals out. Don't send the queen bee out into the field.
Right. True.
Like. Again, it comes into you can't go halfway with this. Either they're all like mindless zombies or weird whatever they are, things that are all like I don't know that doesn't have like a will, or they're actual characters, right? Don't go halfway.
I mean, the White Walkers can be characters, and then the Whites can be. I guess they're more like
the Whites
old
are
school, like voodoo zombies, where they're controlled by another rather than just kind of mindless.
Yeah, the Whites are fine. The Whites are fine.
Yeah,
but like I feel like if you're going to give the Night King and his posse character, then things like motivation, these things suddenly start mattering.
I guess I just want to see what they're going to do. Like, what was going to happen when he touched Bran?
Right.
Like, because the way they walk around is so. It's so disconcerting because they walk around like they're a horde of like businessmen or something, just kind of striding around Winterfell.
Right.
And what is actually the next step when they touch Bran? Like, I want to see the plan in motion because it's never clear to me.
Maybe they can like warg into Bran and then like become humans and like take over society. I don't know.
My feeling was that
it's the Night King actually really wanted to die, but he thinks like the three-eyed crow's the only person who can actually kill him, so that's why he's coming for him.
That's what I was thinking. It was more a matter of that they're coming to kill all the humans. This is the only guy who knows enough to maybe stop them, so let's get rid of this guy and then just keep going and killing everyone. That's all. I thought it was just a matter of he's smart and powerful, so let's take him out. Taking out the general.
They could have like taken him out from the sky. Like they could have done it from a distance. Like Bran is in a wheelchair. He's kind of a sitting duck, and so but they wanted to like one-on-one confront him.
Could they take him out from the sky because they had the dragon battles? Remember, Jon and Dany were stopping him in the sky. So it's only when he gets knocked off the dragon that he starts walking for them. He was coming for them. He could
have like taken a bow and arrow and walked up to like a wall and shot Bran.
But do we even know that they want to kill Bran? Because it might be that they actually just want to capture him and use his power.
Well, he did reach for his sword. He did reach for his sword there at the end, but maybe.
I have to believe they wanted to kill Bran so that Theon's death has purpose. So.
Yeah. Good.
Or is it like they need to like leech Bran's power off of him first, and then they can kill him?
It could be that, like, they could be using him as, like, a power source. The way that, like, Melisandre uses, like, King's blood as a power source, maybe. Mm-hmm. Something like that. Like, they use his memory. I mean, we do get a hint of it last episode where Bran talks about he wants to eradicate memory of the world. Mm-hmm. And Nan talks about, like, the White Walkers hating things with warm blood in their veins. So they just hate the idea of life itself, and that's what they want to destroy. Mm-hmm. Which is a scary idea.
Yeah, I don't know. Bran just, to me, he feels like the giver, like the Lois Lowry book, where it's just like he's the only one with the knowledge, and then they all just want to get rid of the knowledge. But I don't know. The motivation just is kind of.
What is his knowledge?
Yeah.
Everything.
Okay. I don't know. It feels like both Bran and the Night King are equally opaque as characters, so their conflict, quote unquote, doesn't really work.
It's not compelling for you.
Yeah. Well,
fair enough.
It's two blank slates banging against each other.
Yeah.
Oh my god, that's the perfect analogy.
Yeah, somewhat.
Just two empty vessels. I mean, this whole sequence, though, this was like the most tense I was, and the most kind of nauseous I was, just watching all the characters. It's like so many dead bodies are littering the ground at this point. Because initially I thought that like the battle for Winterfell would go awry, and they'd have to abandon it and retreat south.
Right, I did too.
But at this point, it's like, oh wait, they have no chance. They have no chance of escaping at this point. The only chance is maybe if Bran can like turn back time or something. But otherwise, they're all going to die.
Right, because especially we get that
super hopeless.
We get the big. Speaking of which, we get to the big moment where, of course, now that he's on the ground, he does the the "come at me, bro" moment from like Hard Home and raises all the dead, and that's when it's like, oh shit, because first of all, we get Lyanna and Ed and, all the different bodies coming back to life. And now, John's like coming after him. He's like, oh shit, now there's like 1,000 people around me. What the fuck am I going to do? But then, of course, you also get the moment we've all been waiting for when they finally realize what we've been saying for weeks now, which is that the crypts are the worst place to be when the dead come and they come back to life, because he starts raising you see the hands start to break out of the crypts and all that. And that was really cool. I'm glad. If they hadn't done that, that would have just been dumb, right?
I guess. Although
I thought only Starks went into the crypts, so I was surprised that there'd be anything left to like emerge out of them that wasn't dust. Because like, who was the last person buried there? Like Ned Stark.
Ned's. Yeah.
Wasn't Lyanna's body brought back as well?
Yeah.
I guess Rickon, but
Rickon.
Pretty low.
Oh yeah, Rickon. Yeah.
I was just confused about like. I didn't think that they were going to actually raise the dead from the crypts, because it seemed too illogical to me in the fact that like that they were like, I thought that all the bodies would have been like way too decomposed by that time, like because it's warm in Winterfell, so like I don't know, I was like, it's too obvious, they're not going to do it, but then they did it.
Yeah, I'm surprised it didn't happen earlier.
Maybe the show is just treating it as a general like cemetery or catacombs that anyone can be buried in.
Right.
I guess.
So it's like casualties of the Battle of the Bastards or some other battle.
Mm-hmm.
They should have just had a zombie Ned Stark made of like with coating his head. It's like
without his head.
Yeah. I don't know. That seems.
Why
cool.
would he hold his head though? I know. We all were kind of.
Why did things happen?
I know. It's true. We were all wondering that because there, he did go back for like to film something like I think a group thing. He went. Supposedly he was back over there. I think it was something they were filming like a reunion episode or something that's going to happen at the end or something like that. So, but then there was lots of theories. Oh, is he coming back to be in the crypts? But thank God, I'm glad they didn't. By the way, as we come before we leave,
a quick Google, and it takes about 300 years for bones to turn into dust to fully decompose.
So all the dead Starks
without a coffin. So like a lot of Starks could have been there.
Right, and we didn't see a lot. We only saw like a dozen or two. So that makes sense.
Yeah.
They maybe were just standing where the newer ones are. Bad place to stand, everyone. Sans and Tyrion and everyone. But we also had at this whole bit that whole long tracking shot of Jon as he's trying to get to Bran. That was an amazing shot, right? They filmed that whole thing like a minute or two all at once. It was really neat. And then at some point in there, he sees Sam, and he walks by almost all the major characters at one point or another, and he can't help them because he has to get to Bran, and yet Sam is on the ground. And the one you think he'll go back for, and nope, no time for that. It was kind of neat.
I didn't think he was trying to get to Bran. I thought he was just being a little bitch and wasn't going to help anyone. I did not think he was trying to get to Bran at all.
Nope, I think that's where he was going, but whatever.
He's a little
I'm always
bit.
a fan of long shots. I like long takes. I think they're nice to watch, so I guess. I don't know, I feel like Jon was kind of pointless because he didn't even end up helping Bran at all.
Right. There was a neat little moment, too, where Sansa and Tyrion don't say anything, and they're just kind of hiding and waiting to die. And there's a moment where Sansa pulls out a knife, and she looks at it, and Tyrion looks at her, and then he kisses her hand. Like, was she considering committing suicide there? What was the knife? Or
That's what I thought. I thought she was gonna be like, we might as well just kill ourselves now. But then everyone I was watching with was like, no, she's gonna fight, and I was like, she doesn't know how to use. Like, she doesn't have any battle training. Like she can stab something, but that's like
stick him with the pointy end. That's all you need.
Exactly.
Yeah, but like you stab something and then you have to pull it out and stab them again. And like someone else could come and kill. Yeah, I don't know. And she was like the only one with a weapon. I don't know.
I thought she was going to give it to Tyrion. Because Tyrion had said he wanted to fight and has actually fought in a battle before. So I was just like, is she going to give it to Tyrion?
And why doesn't he already have
Which would work.
Ironically, knives don't work on zombies.
Yeah.
Apparently. Well, not that knife.
If Arya gave it to her, you'd think it would have had some, dragon glass or Valyrian steel or something, right?
I guess.
Did they even use any dragon glass?
It was a bad Chekhov's gun. She's like, she had a knife, didn't use it. Made a whole scene about giving it to her.
Right.
What was the hope? Yeah, ultimately, what was the point of the whole crypt scene? Is just to scare people a little bit more?
Probably.
That maybe the people in the crypts are in danger?
Well,
nobody important died in there.
Yeah.
That's where, wasn't Beric down there? Beric died down there.
No, Beric died with
they were
Arya.
in like the libraries that somehow had been reconstructed after being burned down like 6 times. I don't know why there were still books there. Whatever.
With the crypts, when they had the soldiers banging on the door to be let in, being like, let us in, open the door, let us in.
That was cool.
They had the classic movie moment in zombie movies where it's, do you let people in and hopefully save some lives? Or if you let them in, do you condemn every single person who's in there with you because you let zombies in as well? Like, it's that moment of what do we do? What should we do as people?
Although we didn't have time to really explore it, unfortunately. But there was a lot of just fighting, and I couldn't tell what was going on. There was one bit where Brienne screams, and I thought she died there. And was at the end of the episode, I still wasn't even sure who was dead and who wasn't. But I figured, they would have given Brienne a bigger moment if they'd killed her, right?
Yeah. There was one moment where it was tracking through the carnage of Winterfell, and it was just a sea of dead bodies. But then it just had like the 7 main characters still alive, battling like
the only
10
ones,
zombies each. Which felt a bit cheesy to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wish that they had killed a main character and then and not given them a big moment, because I don't know. I just feel like the minute you give them a big moment, and it's like, oh, it's obvious they're gonna die. It's
right.
More nice just to be like, oh, tracking shot. Oh, boop, one of them is dead.
Yeah. Plot armor was in full force. For this whole episode.
We have the whole lead up now, that big piano music and all that got really cool during all that stuff. And then we get to the Theon bit, which that to me, whether the first scene or not broke your heart, I feel like this one really did. Alfie Allen's acting classes came into good effect here. Theon knows he's dead. And Bran says, "You're a good man. Thank you." And I had all the feels. I was bawling my eyes out when that happened. What do you think?
Yeah, I was very upset. I didn't cry. I was surprised, but I was upset. But I don't know. There was just so much stuff wrong with that scene though that just annoyed me. Like, first of all, he attacked him with a spear, which is like stupid because like obviously it could break. Second of all, I don't know. They like had this lingering shot on him where like, he like twitched, and I thought maybe he would like try to make like one more attempt, but really it was just to be like, oh no, I'm dead. And I don't know. I understand why they killed him, and like I'm expecting him to die in the books, but like I don't know. In my heart, I was like, this is not how it should be.
Yeah.
If only he just waited a few more moments, he would have been fine.
Right. Which actually is the point I was about to say. So Bran knows that Arya is coming, theoretically, right? And he lets Theon go off and die. Now, admittedly, he just has to stall him for a minute or whatever, but it's still kind of cold ass, like,
what a day.
Bran doesn't
sorry,
forgive
Bran.
him. Maybe Bran doesn't actually think Theon's a good man, and he's still like, fuck you.
Oh, and this is all manipulation. That's interesting.
Bran doesn't know anything. He's high as a kite.
Believe that.
Yeah.
I'm excited for the next episode, though. All the like fallout of that, and like Sansa being sad.
I don't know. I still think it was. I loved it. I did. When you said, that moment you said where you saw him twitching, I was actually wondering if he was gonna raise up and then come after Bran, which would have been kind of an odd. It would have been a nice kind of. Oh, that's not. I was supposed to be saving you, and he actually came after him. But they didn't.
No, I'm glad that he didn't get raised.
Yeah.
I somewhere in the Iron Islands, my heart was crying.
So Theon, of course, is different in the show than the books, partially because he's more whole, because in the books he's missing fingers and toes and teeth and can't eat, and he's aged and his gray hair and all that. So I'm wondering if, do we think Theon's gonna be protecting Bran or whoever, whatever, whenever he ends, or is he gonna have this big a redemption arc in the books or no?
I do not think so, because he has all that lines about I shouldn't die so far away from the sea and
right.
all of that stuff. So I think he's going to do something for the North or the cause of the good people, but not in this way at all. I don't think he's going to go back to Winterfell.
And do you all agree, or what do you think?
I agree.
I feel like I've made my point on whether the books will follow the TV show at all at this stage very clear at this point.
Right. So my question is, if, let's say, Theon doesn't have a, great heroic saving moment like this, or maybe he has something, but it's less, do you like this better or not?
I think you're right.
He's
too frail in the books to do that. His sort of his redemptive, I don't know if you'd call it redemptive, but his attempt to be human, I guess, is trying to protect Jane Poole and helping her escape or whatever. But I don't think he's going to have a role in the politics of the realm. I think he's going to just make his way back to Asher and do something there, try and find some peace there. But I don't think he has the strength or the will to re-enter the Game of Thrones.
Theon is straight up a different character in this show. And this, I will give the show credit, Theon's a much better character in the show than compared to the books.
At least at this point. At this
I
point.
them both equally, but I think that the books, he's going to have more of a subdued plot, I guess. I can't imagine him doing anything super heroic.
Right.
Beyond saving Jane Poole and supporting Asha.
Will he be even physically capable
to
fight in a battle as
that's
well?
My point.
Because he won't be able to be an archer because he's losing fingers and flesh off his fingers. So he won't be able to do that, which is one of the things he was best at. And he would have massive muscle fatigue. So would he even be able to lift a sword or a weapon like that as well?
Yeah.
I don't even know if he'd be capable, at least for a period of time.
Right. That's kind of the point I was making. And I think this is, for me, one of the few examples. It's hard for us to say what George is going to do because who knows. But I feel like in the end, there's going to be most of the things I'm going to end up liking what George did better. But I think Theon's arc here, I think I may end up liking better because I really like what they did with him on the show. But that's me.
Yeah. I really, really like what they've done with Theon on the show, but I do think we have to think of them as two separate characters now. It's not Theon on Theon. It's show Theon and Reek now.
Right.
I think we need to separate them when we think about them. Yeah.
Maybe that'll change later in the books, but at the moment, yeah. So why don't we move on to the big topic of this, which is Arya saving the day, seemingly coming out of nowhere. I know there's lots of thoughts on that everyone all over the internet's had. What about you guys? Did you like it? Did it surprise you?
I don't.
So I watched this with Greg and Casey and Zach in an apartment in DC, and we lost our collective minds when this happened. I think Casey got a complaint the day after from her building inspector because we were too loud. So we were.
That's awesome.
We just could not believe our eyes. But yeah,
right. Yeah,
it was a shock. It was a shock.
Yeah.
A good or a bad shock?
I don't know. We just did not expect the story to go that way. We didn't expect Arya to be the one to do it. Right. We didn't expect so much of the White Walker lore to be so unceremoniously cut off.
Yep.
We didn't expect like the because they were making a big deal about Jon Snow being the Targaryen heir, and we thought maybe the prince that was promised prophecy would have some kind of bearing on the story. I mean, the book series is called A Song of Ice and Fire. The only time that phrase is mentioned is, he is the prince that was promised, his will be the Song of Ice and Fire. And it seems to have nothing really to do with the ending that D&D have come up with.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think in the show, the White Walkers are the second plot, like the B plot, and the Iron Throne is the A plot. And then in the books, I think it's a little more flipped. So I think that Jon's focus will be more at King's Landing.
But that just seems so counter to what I totally agree. But it seems like they're putting Cersei up as the big boss for the last episodes. But you think that feels so counterintuitive to the way the narrative has been produced as like the Game of Thrones being this sort of insignificant clash of children compared to the looming threat, elemental threat, the existential threat of winter.
Right.
But no, the other way around.
Yeah, I feel like for the books, that's definitely the case. I feel for the TV show, they have long since realized that people care much more about the general audience care much more about the actual human conflict compared to man versus not so much, not very man. And that Cersei they found to be more compelling.
Right. But at the same time, it's interesting to think that in the books, at least as of now, we've almost never seen the White Walkers. They definitely showed them a lot more on the show, even though they didn't end up being the big bad, which is the bizarre twist there. And that, in the books, how many times have we actually seen White Walkers? Very, very few. They've given us a lot more scenes. Now, admittedly, we're further along. Maybe there will be more in the books in the next...
I feel again that's the difference between the others in the books versus the White Walkers. The others in the books are literally a force of nature, and that's the point. There's no character. It is literally winter. It is the Stark going back all the way back to Stark where winter is coming. It's literally winter coming at you, and how are you going to resist a force of nature amidst all your stupid little petty squabbles?
Mm-hmm.
So
and in fact,
yeah.
Sorry. And George even said in his original outline that the whole third original book he was going to do was going to be, we've dealt with all of this other stuff and now we're fighting this horde of zombies. So it'll be interesting to see what he actually comes up with now.
And like going all the way to the title of the TV show versus the books. The book is called A Song of Ice and Fire. Right. The TV show is a Game of Thrones.
True.
That's where the priorities lie.
Getting back to Arya, I'm sorry.
Because that's what we were supposed to be talking about.
Sorry. I'm completely indifferent about her killing the Night King. Like, I don't know, I can't even remember what my thought was when she did it, but like, I was like, I don't know, I wasn't angry. I wasn't like, oh, she deserved to kill him, but I was more just like, I don't know, I was expecting the episode to end with the Night King's death because I was like, didn't understand how they would be able to draw this battle out over more than one episode, just the way that this season has been structured. So I was expecting him to die. And so I guess it was a nice twist. I wasn't expecting it to be Arya, but wasn't not expecting him to live, I guess.
Well, I think there's also the question of, so we had our initial reactions when Arya did it. We all were shocked and like, oh my God. And people had their feelings about it then. And now we've had a couple of days to ponder it. So have your opinions changed? For me, I was shocked at first and kind of happy about it. I enjoyed it. And I've kind of, like with my thoughts on the episode in general, have kind of fluctuated. At first I was like, oh, but that's too far. That's definitely not going to happen in the books, so I don't like it. And after rewatching it, I kind of liked it because they did, at least they set it up in this episode. I'm okay with it now.
Personally, if it had have happened at the very start of this episode, I would have hated it. But having seen her go through this whole episode and how she has had to use her wits to do it, and to outsmart the others and use her agility and knowing when to hide, it felt so much less Mary Sue-ish than it would have otherwise if she had have done it. Because to begin with, I've never really liked or believed her story arc to become a faceless man. I've always been like, whatever about it. But having Arya actually kill the Night King I really liked in this episode, and like how they portrayed her in this episode and how she did it. Yeah.
It's not even so much. Go ahead, Abby.
Oh, no. I was just gonna say, I guess if you think about this episode as like its own movie, like it's like a contained movie, the episode really does do a good job of building up like it to make sense that Arya does it. And so I'm not mad, but like I do understand people being like, it literally came out of nowhere.
I feel like it's not so much the who does it in the end that really matters. It's like, that's it. It's like, oh, you just stab the main bad guy, and
that's the end of it all. Yeah.
Yep. Everything just goes into dust. It's incredibly Hollywood.
Well, it is interesting. Almost every major battle we've had on this show has had, oh shit, we're all losing. Oh my God. And at the last moment, someone comes in and saves the day. And in this case, it was actually someone who was at least there, but we didn't see her. And of course, they deliberately took the camera off her for a while so we wouldn't know that she's gotten there, which worked. I mean, I don't think were any of us not surprised by that it was her? I mean, I can't imagine.
I was more just like, that really? That's where they're going with it.
But surprise is my point.
I guess.
Right.
It did feel.
I was definitely surprised.
I mean, one point is like, I guess we're all expecting Dany or Jon to be the one to defeat the Night's King. So it's a surprise when Dany unleashes the full force of Drogon and it does nothing. And so it's a surprise. It's a surprise that it's a little kid that ends up killing him. But it did feel like a bit of a cheat that the way the Night's King is defeated, the way this great civilization that has tormented man for like 8,000 years is kind of tricked by this little cool knife move. But one thing I sort of realized afterwards, I don't know if it makes it better, but it kind of, the scene echoes the beginning of the series in an interesting way, where in the scene where Bran is going to be killed by the assassin in his bed and the wolf jumps out to protect him. And here it's like the same thing. So this assassin is walking towards Bran to stab him with the very same knife, and then a wolf jumps out and stops him. I thought that was like a cool little echo. I don't know what they were trying to say with that, but it's kind of like, maybe if we think of Bran as the three-eyed raven, like seeing time wrapping around itself and all these complexities that only he can perceive, like maybe that's a little insight into his machinations or whatever. But but I mean, it's like, I don't know how to feel, because like I don't really know what's going to happen. Obviously, like anything could really happen. Like, I don't know enough about the Night's King to know how it will be resolved. Maybe it will be something so small and inconceivable that the Night's King doesn't see it coming, or the White Walkers don't see it coming, or whatever. But it's just not what I expected, and it feels strange that the final 3 seasons are going to be a regression to that. The big boss will be Cersei and the Golden Company, who were introduced last episode. That'll be the finale.
No one who hasn't read the books even knows who they are.
And Euron, who's a pretty lackluster villain in the
TV show.
In the TV show, at least, as opposed to the White Walkers, who have been the villain since the very first scene of the series. But c'est la vie.
Do you think that Arya doing it feels earned on the show, or no?
I mean, they were hinting at it a bit, it seems, in this episode, with Melisandre. And like I said, the idea of a character that sort of becomes one with death could somehow defeat death is an interesting narrative vein, that in a way her training with the Faceless Men was training her to defeat a foe that she'd never even realized existed until she met it. So maybe, possibly, as like she was accidentally training for this all along. And the Principal's prophecy was a red herring. Like that's an interesting possibility. I don't know. Like, I feel like if it had been, I feel like if the show was better or was written better, I would be more okay with this decision. But I don't know. The show just feels like a bit clumsy. That I'm more harsher on this decision.
Yeah, at this point, I don't really care if it was earned or not. I don't know. I'm indifferent.
Here's an interesting question. maybe we all wondered why Jakanagar let her go a few seasons ago. Maybe he knew this was coming. Just a thought. Just something to consider.
Maybe. I mean, yeah, we don't really know the motives of Jakanagar either.
Right.
I don't know.
Okay, let's.
And that's the thing. That's the thing. We don't know. We don't have any clarity about why these things happened.
Right.
They just happened.
Maybe we will. How's this for amazing? Well, what if Jakanagar shows up in the last episode, or maybe even the next episode, and goes, "A girl did what she was supposed to," or something to that effect? That would be pretty awesome, I think. Would you approve of that?
That would be lame as shit.
Okay, maybe not.
Sorry, no.
That's cool. We don't have to agree.
No.
Just a thought I had that just randomly popped into my head just now. So
I don't know what there is to say about Arya. She just saved the whole world.
Right.
I don't know what she's going to do. I mean, she can take the rest of the year off. She doesn't really have any.
Yeah, it does make me...
Yeah, I don't know. Nothing can live up to this.
It does
even if she kills Cersei.
Yeah, it does make me wonder what her plot purpose is for the rest of this season, because if she also is the one that assassinates Cersei, it's kind of like, okay, I guess Arya just does everything now. But it's like I don't really know what her purpose is after this. I guess the surprise is everyone was expecting her to kill Cersei.
Right.
And because she killed the Night King, it's kind of like if she also kills Cersei, none of the other characters matter at all.
Right. So, I mean, I don't think she's going to kill Cersei now. I wouldn't have said that last week, but... Okay.
Rather than...
My expectations were very subverted, and will continue to be, I guess, because now I have no idea how Cersei's going to be dealt with.
Rather than Arya killing Cersei, I'd really like it if Sansa kills Cersei now, because or be the reason for her downfall, because she's, especially earlier on, so much of Sansa's story arc revolved around Cersei, and Cersei had so much influence over her. So it would be really interesting if Sansa was Cersei's downfall.
Next up, we have, after being stabbed a few times previously, Jorah finally dies right in Dany's arms, and again with the feels. I did cry there again. I'm the tear guy.
Yeah, I got a bit misty when the dragon started to whimper and curl around.
Yeah, the crazy.
Really?
That was cool. I like that.
You guys need to stop drinking and watching Game of Thrones.
I wasn't drinking. It's an animal thing. I have more sympathy for animals than humans.
Yeah, I was actually surprised I did not cry at all this episode, and I think it's because I was drinking. Because I will cry. I cry so easily. I was sobbing in the episode in the chapter where Theon and Jane Poole jump out a window because I was so emotionally impacted over something stupid. I did not cry at all, and I don't know. I cry. I'll cry when two characters become friends. I'm like, oh my gosh, they're so happy. I did not cry at all during this episode though.
Well, no, I sort of not a tearjerker, but I will say, as much as I've complained about this episode, I did find it emotionally kind of exhausting. Just the sheer carnage and the threat, just the overwhelming odds against the character. And that final stab by Arya was just such a somatic release. I just could not get over the shattering of the, just such a violent reversal of fortune.
Yep.
But in a good way, rather than the Red Wedding. It's the reverse of the Red Wedding. It's the heroes are in dire straits. Which feels cheap because we get a bunch of near deaths and then suddenly a character is saved, and this is kind of a macro version of that. But it still shook me. I'll admit it was well done.
Yeah, I was definitely emotionally invested, and I was very sad when Jorah died, because I don't know, show Jorah, I feel a lot for him.
Yeah, definitely more so than book Jorah, that's for sure.
I feel the last few moments of I would just keep counting down are we going to get another episode of this? Just where are we going with this? And then suddenly it all just ended. It's that's it. Huh? Yep.
I was definitely emotionally exhausted by the end of the episode, though. I was I didn't know what to feel.
Mm.
Were you people surprised that Melisandre just sort of took her brooch off and walked into the sunset, dissolving away as she went?
She said she was going to die. I was like, why aren't you dead yet?
Yeah, right?
I know.
Well, she answered your question.
Okay.
I thought that was stupid.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't expect her to show up again. So her walking to the sunset didn't really mean that much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wish Davos had killed her, or she had burned, or I thought her death was so stupid.
I really liked
didn't
it.
do anything.
See, I
mean,
really
it's Leonard Nimoy all over again. It's like, my work here is done. You didn't do anything.
Right.
That's why I came up with my theory of maybe she made a deal with R'hllor, and that after the Night King died, she would die as well. Just like, maybe, I don't know.
Well, I don't even think it's a deal so much. I feel like she just knew, this is my purpose. This is what I'm still around for. Like, she's this old. All the time we've seen her, she's had no other purpose than to fight this battle. She fought it, and that's the end of her. That's what she has to do. There's no reason for her to stay around for another 100,000 or whatever years. So that's it. She's done. I've served my purpose. She won. She served her god. I'm happy.
How does she die?
Yeah, I definitely agree. She deserved to die. Like, she should have died, and her death made sense. But the means that her death occurred in was so pointless and just unfulfilling. I don't know. I just, because I felt like she shouldn't have been able to die on her own terms, I guess.
I still don't understand how she died. Period.
I wanted her to sacrifice
and disintegrated. I don't know.
Yeah.
I feel like she was.
I think it would have been better if she did sacrifice herself, though.
Yeah.
It would have felt more fulfilling.
I guess she withdrew her glamour or whatever that protected her body from the cold or the elements or whatever, and just let nature have at it.
It's just like she didn't learn anything, and that's why I agree with Sarah that she should have sacrificed herself, or I think that maybe Davos should have gotten some justice, because her dying on her own terms, it was like, I feel like the point of her character is like, she believes that the ends justify the means, and then she basically learns that the ends justify the means.
Right. Well,
cool.
You could argue sometimes they do. Whether you should burn a little child, maybe not. But everything she did for what she thought was the greater good. She wasn't just greedy or selfish. She was doing what she thought her god wanted her to do. If you're going to take the scientific question of how did she die, well, that doesn't make any sense, because even if she was old and being kept young, we saw her as an old lady. We didn't see her as dust. So I think it was just that the Lord of Light's magic that was in her kept her alive, and it's not in her anymore. So she's done. Sure. And I think that's what they were going for, at least. I mean, whether you think that's deserved or not, that's up to it. I personally liked it. I thought it made sense for her character.
Okay.
Okay.
Still don't understand how she died.
Yeah, I mean, I don't understand. I mean, it's magic. Magic doesn't have to make physical sense, right? I mean, how do you have blue fire coming? How do dragons even fly? It doesn't make any sense. But
dragons have wings.
I think that she died because she was so old that when she didn't have the glamour anymore, like she had 2 seconds to live before her body gave out.
Right.
So I guess
so. Yeah, and as well, she died walking into the sunrise, so died walking into R'hllor's arms.
There you go.
So.
Yes. Anyway, whatever. It's not important.
Let's talk a little bit about just in the end. So now, first of all, did everyone had their own thoughts of whether this would be the end of the Night King and whether it would continue? I know certainly I felt like it would make no sense to have Cersei as the final boss. So we'd have to have, like Duncan said, them escaping away and running away, and then we'd have more. But did most of you think that was going to happen, or did you think that what did you think?
The way the story was structured, this was the only way it could happen at this point. Right? Well, the moment that they had the sort of the battle beyond the wall episode, I feel like this is the way the story is headed towards. Then they decide that they have to deal with the White Walkers first, and then they'll come back and sort out stuff in the Seven Kingdoms. That's the narrative choice they made back then.
I mean, it's frustrating because I feel like Dany could have defeated Cersei last season.
Yep.
Like, she was at King's Landing with 2 dragons, an army of Unsullied. Cersei had no army. She could have done it right there and then. So the idea of her suddenly becoming the final boss seems a bit unearned or a bit awkward. I don't know. It's like we're going back to a previous storyline or something.
I wouldn't mind it if the fact that there weren't 3 episodes left, like if it was just one more episode, because I don't understand how they're going to stretch that out when they could have stretched out this battle for a lot longer, or like done a cutaway where the battle ended, at Winterfell, cutaway, do some shit with Cersei, then cut back to the battle that's still going on at Winterfell or something in the next episode. So I'm just a little confused and worried for how they're going to allot the proper amount of time.
I mean, we have 4 hours left.
Maybe we'll get an episode of Dario trying to like manage Marine.
Do you like Cersei as the big bad final boss of Game of Thrones? What do you think?
I don't mind her. I don't know. I think that in the show she's a worthwhile opponent, I guess. And a lot of characters' plots kind of are central to hers, or she's central to a lot of characters' plots, I guess. So she narratively fits in, I guess. I hate that freaking wig. Every time I see it, it just makes me.
That's her hair.
I don't know.
I just feel like her storyline's played out. Like her character's not really going anywhere else, and the characters around her aren't particularly interesting. Like Euron and the general of the Golden Company and Qyburn. Like it's not the most compelling cast.
Gregor. Yeah.
And the mute giant.
Right. I mean, to me, it just feels so anticlimactic now. We've just fought the dead. We fought everything that we've been fighting for years against, for thousands of years. And now we're going to take on some queen in the Golden Company who, whatever.
I mean,
like Dany,
it's almost like an epilogue.
Yeah.
It's almost like tying up loose ends. It's
4
like,
hours.
okay, we're finally going to see the game ball. We're going to see Jaime strangle Cersei, blah, blah, blah. And then they're going to implement the new Targaryen dynasty.
Yeah.
But it's all after the climax.
Right.
It's like the post-canon like fan fiction where, someone wants to wrap up all the loose ends, but it's not fan fiction. It's like the actual canon.
Right.
I guess the thing is that Cersei at least has a character and people are attached to her, whereas the Night King has no character.
Fair point.
True.
I guess for me it feels weird that we didn't really lose any major characters in this battle. Yeah, you could say a couple. We lost Jorah and we lost Theon, but neither of them have really been major characters, at least for a while. So now presumably we're going to lose a few more characters, I would think. So wait, they survived the dead, but Cersei or Euron takes them out? Like, that would feel weird. Like, if Jaime dies from Euron, I'm going to be really pissed off.
Yeah, if a dragon gets taken out by Cersei or Euron rather than the Night's King, it's going to feel a bit lame.
Do you have anything you want to say about the future or predictions, or should we just wrap it up?
I mean, on the flip side, I kind of do enjoy the Game of Thrones side more, even if I wasn't expecting it. So, there might be more enjoyable episodes for all I know, even if it didn't quite fit the mold I thought was going to go. I'm also wondering if my reaction to the Night King death is just a general sort of postponed reaction to how I think what I'm going to feel when the series is over, and it's like, oh god, it's over. I have nothing more to like look forward to, or is the fandom going to like just wander out into the snow and fall over?
we'll all be Melisandre. Well, of course,
it's like we're so used to like not getting an ending. What if we actually get one?
Right. On the other hand,
we feel?
We still have another 20 years for the next 2 books to come out. So
right.
We have that to look forward to.
I mean, that's the other scary thing. What if this is the only ending? Not scary. I'm being melodramatic, but what if this is the only ending we get?
Yeah,
that's been a threat for years now.
Yep. Well, we'll see if any books come out in the next 5 years.
Right. Oh, and on that cheery note, let's wrap this up. You can find us online by searching for VOK Podcast or Vassals of Kingsgrave in your favorite search engine, or on iTunes, archive.org, YouTube, Stitcher, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Tumblr, and all your favorite dating apps. Feel free to leave comments and likes and to subscribe. But if you really want to join in the discussions, and if you'd like to join the podcast at some point, look for us on the Podcast of Ice and Fire forums. Does anyone have any upcoming podcasts that you'd like to pimp out?
So, like I mentioned, we're going to be recording an Ice and Fire Con recap this weekend. And we also did our first ever VOK panel at the con, which I recorded. So I'll release that in the future as well.
Nice. I mentioned previously there will be a Doctor Who first reactions podcast once I get to edit it, after this one, of course. So that's coming up at some point once I get off my butt. And of course, we still have DragonCast and WolfCast and KrakenCast continuing every week, and our linear reread. I guess that's it. So thanks, everyone. I'd like to thank everyone for joining us. I'm David, and thank you to our hosts, Duncan, Sarah, Bing, Neil, Abby, and briefly Donna. Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Kraken.
Dead, not dead, etc.
Right. So, Duncan, let's talk a little bit briefly about your journeys in America. I luckily got to run into you, which was kind of cool. I bust to New York, and we had a little mood over trivia.
Yeah. I was very impressed. You wasn't it like a 5-hour bus ride or something?
Something like that, yeah. But actually, getting there was actually pretty fast. It was getting home that took forever. I hit traffic, and I didn't get a direct bus, which sucked. So I had stops along the way, and I didn't get much sleep. But whatever. Yeah. When else am I going to get to meet you?
American traffic's pretty crazy. Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
When else am I going to
be a little while before I get back there?
Right. So you never know. So it was once in a, not only that, but, we all had fun. We got to get together. For those who don't know, we met at a bar and did a trivia contest. And it was #Greg, Zach, Julia, Duncan, and I. We came in third, and #Greg's still bitter about it, I'm sure, but that's fine. But we love you. We did well, I think. I was happy with it. And we had a fun time, which was the best part.
It was Game of Thrones trivia. We came third. I think we lost by 2 points.
Right. But out of 16
I think it was the second round that killed us, though, because it was a list of 20 quotes from the show, and we had to attribute it. And I think we only got maybe a quarter of them because I think most of us have probably only haven't rewatched the later seasons since they aired, so we were a bit rusty on those. But we did pretty well on the other rounds.
We lost by 2 points out of 16 teams. That's pretty good. I'll take it.
We did much better in the Ice and Fire Con trivia.
I bet.
But you can hear about that for the recap next episode.
One of the funny things about the moot is I was going to wear my I Drink and I Know Things shirt because I thought, well, that's appropriate for trivia, right? In a bar.
You told me, yeah.
And then
you thought that heaps of other people would be wearing it.
Exactly. I figured it seems the obvious, especially plus a lot of big stores are selling those shirts, Target and a few others here. So I thought for sure everyone would be wearing it. And then no one did, but I still had, I thought it was somewhat appropriate. I don't think anyone noticed it though, is I had this one I bought, which I think was a bootleg. I didn't realize at the time. And it had Jon Snow and several of the other characters, most of whom are dead now. It had, I think, Sam and, I don't remember, Renegade, but it has the You Know Nothing on it. So I thought that would be fun for trivia, kind of a tease to the other teams, but I don't think anyone even saw it. So, oh well. So then from there you went to LA and you had 2 moots, right?
Yeah. We met up the first week I was there and went to the Ripley's Believe It or Not Museum, which is a really cool.
And who'd you meet up with?
Cool place. Met up with Amber, who traveled down from Seattle, and Hannah and Sarah, who are both locals. And we went to the museum and we went out to lunch, and then we just finished off by having a walk along the Hollywood Walk of Fame.
Cool.
Checking out all the celebrities. So that was fun.
And don't forget what you did on the Walk of Fame.
Yeah, we We got there was someone who could I don't know what the official job is, but they had letters that they could set up whatever typeface you wanted on one of the Hollywood stars. So we had the person write out Vassals of Kingsgrave, and we got a cool photo in front of it, which was really fun. That was Hannah's idea. Very memorable.
I'm sure that's nothing official. I think that's like some guy just has a bunch of them out there and it's like, hey, let's make some money off of this, and the city doesn't stop them. That would be my guess, but whatever.
Well, I guess they have to have a blank. They have to have a blank star though to do it. So I'm sure they need some kind of permit. But,
well, there may just be a star there, and they use. They might be getting ready for the next one or whatever. But whatever. Right. It was fun. Yeah. And then you had another one a week later because Bina came to town, right?
Yeah. So me and Hannah went to the La Brea Tar Pits, and then we met up with Bina for dinner at a really nice Italian place, and we also did a little Skype chat with a few other vassals.
Cool.
That evening, which was fun. And then the final moot was in Washington, D.C., where I met up with Casey and Matt and a few other A Song of Ice and Fire fans, and we went out to trivia again.
Cool.
And
was it the same company or a different one?
No, it wasn't Game of Thrones trivia. It was just a local pub trivia, and we didn't do as well as the Game of Thrones trivia.
Of course,
it was still fun. I was useless because they were all American-based questions, and the one Australian question I had no idea what the answer.
Of course, right?
Although I do now, I won't forget it now. The question was, what is the only profession where it's legal to own a rabbit in the state of Queensland, which is an Australian state? Yes. And the answer is magician.
That makes sense.
Because rabbits, it's illegal to own rabbits in that state because they're such a vermin to farmers.
Yeah.
So now I know.
Cool.
Yep.
I'm going to
just the benefit of trivia. You get trivial trivial information,
right.
And you never forget it. It's stored away for future use.
So who did you moot with?
So it was Casey and Matt, who's Blue Armor on the forums, so they're vassals, and then another guy named John, who's a regular at Ice and Fire Con, and a girl named Eliana, who's a podcaster for a different podcast about A Song of Ice and Fire.
Cool. And then you went to Ice and Fire Con.
Yeah, so it was a 3-day event, and it was pretty much non-stop all 3 days. There was so much happening.
I bet.
Panels, dances, board games, jousting, performances, music, plays, just heaps and heaps of things. And it was my first time there, so I really had no idea what I was expecting.
Right.
But I'd listened to all the previous Ice and Fire Con recaps, and I was always so jealous on the other side of the world, hearing how much fun people were having. So I really wanted to make just one. And I was in America for some research conferences for uni, and it just worked out that they were close in proximity and sort of time frame to Ice and Fire Con. So it was a perfect opportunity. And and it was a great time to go because it was the final season of the show, and Fire and Blood had just come out, so there was a few talks about those two topics. And it was a blast, not just the events, but also just being able to hang out with people.
Right. Which vassals
outside of the podcast?
Sorry. Which vassals were there? So
I went there with me, Casey, Zach, and Greg drove up there, and then there was Matt, Blue Armor, who I'd seen earlier in the week. Adam came down, Drowned Snow. But it was his first con as well.
Nice.
And FT Ward, who's a regular at the con. Skywalter, Scott, who's on a lot of the comic book podcasts. Dan Witless Chum was there with his sister. He's another staple of the con, and he also helped us out, me and Casey, with our live panel. And Alex was there. Who's named Lucky Charms on the forums, and there was a few other vassals and just lots of people just from the fandom in general. So there was History of Westeros and the people from Radio Westeros and Davos Fingers and lots of different people.
Yeah, I was jealous. I wanted to go, but I just couldn't make it happen this year. Maybe next year.
It was so weird because I kept hearing people who I recognized and seeing their faces and vaguely recognized them. like Twitter and things like that. But it was so cool to have everyone in one place. And
right.
Yeah.
Well, that was one of the reasons why I came.
And passionate about the books. It's really cool.
That was one of the reasons why I came out to see you guys, was just any chance to see everyone. Because, I mean, even though some of us only live a few hours from each other, it's always when, like, Bino or you come to town, it's one of those things that everyone gets together for. So I was like, yes, I wanted to meet you, which I do, or did. And, but everyone was there. I'd only actually met Greg before, because he was at Boston Moot, but I hadn't met Zach or Julia, and we were bummed that Mikal wasn't able to make it because she had hurt herself before that, but it would have been great to meet everyone. But even then, it was a great time, and I'm glad. So it's one of the things, like, it's weird because we're all friends from, like, around the world, and most of us have never met, or once or twice. And it's kind of a cool thing about this podcast, I think.
Yeah, it's a unique situation to, like, get to know someone by their voice or by by typing messages to them. So it's weird to actually, like, have that many conversations with a person, but then still be meeting them for the first time.
Right. And in some cases, you don't even know what they look like, right? In some cases, I don't know who people look like. And I've had dreams about people that I've never actually don't even know what they look like. It's weird.
And it can take a few minutes for, like, the two things to synthesize, but then it feels super comfortable and it feels like you're with old friends.
Right?
So, yeah, it was really fun.
Exactly.
Yeah, I was glad I did it. It was really good.